Welcome back, Chargers. Here we are once more. Happy New Year, everyone. All right. First of all, I would like to thank our supporters. Thank you for supporting Charles Max channel on Facebook and on YouTube. And with your support, we are here also to give you more fun and exciting videos this year, 2022. And since it's the year of the tiger, we will start off with this tigers of the game. The two tigers of the game, Grandmaster Tigran Petrosian and Grandmaster Vishwanathan Anand, both are former world champions. All right, to start off, we have this game by Petrosian against Korchnoi, which was played in 1977. Take a closer look of the game because this game is also related to a game by Vishwanathan Anand back in 2018. So let's get the ball rolling. All right. We have d4, Korchnoi against Petrosian. Petrosian was white. d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, c4, d5. Okay, we have the queen pawn. Everything is just normal. Knight c3, c5. Now we are going into the Tarrasch. Okay, this is a Tarrasch defense. C takes d5. Here, black captured with the knight. If let's say black captures it with the pawn, it will go into the Tarrasch. But with the capture of the knight, it is the semi-Tarrasch. All right, the semi-Tarrasch with knight takes d5. All right, let's continue. e4 takes on c3, takes on c3, takes on d4, takes on d4. The structure also resembles some kind of Grunfeld type of middle game, wherein the only difference is that the pawn is not on g6, of course. Okay, but the structure with the pawn on d4 and e4 resembles this Grunfeld structure. So after bishop b4, bishop to d2, takes on d2, queen takes d2, castles for black first, bishop on c4, knight on c6, castles, b6, rook fe1, rook in the middle, bishop b7, rook a d1. So white now has completed its development, centralized rooks on d1 and e1. But keep an eye on this d pawn. Keep an eye on that d pawn. All right, knight goes to e7. Okay, keep an eye on rook a d1. It's a reinforcement to that d5 pawn, right? White has this pawn on e4. This bishop on c4. All right, after the captures. Okay, we have a bishop on c4, that queen on d2, and the rook on d1 protecting that pawn on d5. So we have three defenders of the d5 pawn. And black also has three attackers of the d5 pawn, the knight on e7, the bishop on b7, and that queen on d8. All right. So knight goes to f5. Knight on e5, centralizing the knight. Look at the knight, right? When the knight is in the middle of the board, once again, it controls a number of squares. 8 squares, right? So it's nice to have that knight in the middle. Right, look at that. Look at the scope of the knight. It's like a Ferris wheel, yeah. Okay, knight on d6. So knight also is a good blockader of a pass pawn, since we have what we call, okay, this important central pass pawn, the central pass pawn. So knight on d6 blocks it. Nice tactic here. Okay, Petrosian used this important tactic with knight c6, yes? Takes on c6, and you will see, oops, is it a free piece, right? Is it a free piece? The question is it a free piece? Let's drink to that one first. Is it a free piece? But white has this queen f4. Well, look at that. The queen attacks the knight on c4. The rook attacks that queen on d8, so that's a double attack. And in this case, white regains the piece, right? So knight goes back to d6, rook takes d6, queen to c7, g3, black played h6, a luft, space here for the king. But let's stop from this position, okay? This position on the board. Check it out, right? Check this out. Keep this in mind. That pawn in g3, that queen on f4. Look at the pawn structure. Just look at the pawn structure from the black side and also the white side. The position of the rook, the position of the queen, and the pawn in g3, right? And this was played in 1977, right? Now, let's fast forward to 2018. So 4 years ago, between between Anand and Hu Yifan. Hu Yifan is also a former world chess champion or from the women's side. So he is a former women's world champion from China. Also a very strong grandmaster and a lady at that. Yeah. She 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 had a rating of 2.6 plus as well. Almost 2.7. Very strong Hu Yifan. I actually lost to her 11 years ago in Kuala Lumpur. All right. So let's look at this game by Anand in 2018. All right. It started with c4. It started with an English, but it will transpose into the semi-Tarrasch. e4, c5. Okay, the main difference between this game and Petrosian's game is that Anand played rook to b1. Petrosian in that game played knight to f3, right? Petrosian in that game played that knight to f3. Okay, so bishop to e7, knight to f3, castles, bishop c4, knight c6 castles. Same b6 approach, bishop e3, bishop to b7, queen e2, takes on d4, takes on d4, rook to c8, rook f d1. In the Petrosian and Korchnoi game, the rook was on e1 and d1, but in this case, it was b1 and d1. Okay, so queen to c7, now threatening this, okay, threatening a discovered attack on the bishop on c4. Again, the central pass pawn with d5, knight e5, bishop to b5, takes, takes. Here, okay, here is the big difference. Because in that game by Korchnoi and Petrosian, in the middle game, there was a knight on e5. But in this case, we're left with two bishop each, yeah, for both sides. But look deeper into this game. Bishop f4, bishop c6, takes on f4. Oh, we're getting closer. Takes on c6, takes on c6, queen c7. That rook on d6, yes. Rook to d8, rook c d1, h6. Look at the pawn. g3. Right? Okay, this is 2018. Anand versus Yifan. Anand is called the Tiger of Madras, right? And the other game in 1977, Petrosian versus Korchnoi. Look at the position. It's almost the same. Similar pawn structure. Right? Similar pawn structure. Look at 2018. 2018. Similar. Okay, that's where rook on d8. But after the capture, for example, rook takes. It's the same pawn structure. Look at the pawn on h6, pawn on g3, right? Okay. 2018, same. In 1977, wow. Wow. They're both okay. They were born with different mothers, but they think alike. Yeah, look at that. All right, let's continue with the 1977 game. Yeah. Oh, wow, it was the same. Imagine that, huh? Almost 50 years. It was almost 50 years apart. Yeah, or was it? My math is very bad. Sorry about that. Okay, so rook c8, queen d5, centralizing the queen. King on h7, rook e4, king to g8, king to g2, pawn on a6. And all right, we have that pass pawn on c6, but it is being blockaded by that queen on c7 and rook on c8. And then we go back to this principle of two weaknesses. We cannot win by one weakness alone. So here, Petrosian created the second weakness on the king side. Yes, since the pawn is blockaded, we cannot use the pass pawn now, but we can use it as a distraction. So all eyes will be on that pawn. That queen and the rook will be on that pawn. So let's create the second weakness on the king side. It starts with h4. Opponent played b5, g4. That's it. Let's do this. Creation of the second weakness. King to h7, rook e2, king h8, g5. Break the king. So black closes it with h5. The Alekhines gone, where there are three major pieces on that same line, the D file. The Alekhines gone, three major pieces on that file. Okay, after rook d2, rook f e8, open file for black. Queen f3, threatening that pawn on h5. Black protected the pawn with g6. Petrosian played rook to d5, which is nice because before he plays this rook to d7, he is blocking the pin first from c6 to g2. Nice one. That was nice. Prophylaxis. Yeah, prophylaxis. So rook f8 protecting f7 since white was already threatening rook to d7. Rook f6. Now this rook protects c6. This rook will go to d7, and there will be three major pieces attacking that f7 pawn. So queen goes to e7, rook to d7. The queen goes back to e8, and here comes white to play and win. Let's drink to that. White to play and win. All right, I know you know it. Rook takes g6. Right, nice tactic. In the game, queen e5 was played, and then queen h5 is made. But anyways, if pawn takes on g6, we have queen c3, checky. And then after king g8, we have queen to g7. Wait. All right, this is a beautiful illustration of how to play with your pass pawn. Okay, the power of the pass pawn. In this case, the central pass pawn. We have so many kinds of pass pawns. We have the outside pass pawn. Okay, we also have connected pass pawns, right? In this case, we have the central pass. A beautiful illustration, beautiful game played by Petrosian against Korchnoi. And we go back once more to that same position where the queen was on f4, pawn was on h6, right? And let's go to 2018, Annan's game against Yifan. We'll continue from here. Okay, Hu Yifan played rook c8. Again, the blockade of the c pawn, the passed c pawn. Queen e5, same as Petrosian, right? Centralizing the queen, putting it on d5. Nice one. Also, Hu Yifan played that king on h7, moving away from the back rank. Yep. And then played queen e4 check, king g8, and nice tactic with rook d7. In the game, Hu Yifan played queen a5, but let's try to look at queen to c6. What happens with queen c6? Let's drink to that once more. With queen c6, white has rook d8 check. The queen on e4 is taking away that h7 square. If, let's say, black captures on d8, white will just simply capture the queen on c6, and white is totally winning, right? So back in the game, after rook to d7, black played queen a5, c7. With the exchange of the rook, especially on d6, with one rook for white and black, White doesn't need to create the second weakness on the king side with g4 and h4 because the back rank only has one rook to defend, right? So after rook f8, it's easier. With queen e7 here, well, black resign. Yes, black resign after queen to e7. Now, for example, here, let's say black protects the c8 square with that queen, right? He protects that one. So how does white continue? What's the winning move after queen to a6? So that means we have rook to d8, right? It is totally winning for white with that strong central pass pawn. Right? So these two positions almost 50 years apart. Yes, almost 50 years apart, played by both tigers. The tiger from Armenia, Tigran Petrosian, and the tiger from Madras, Vishwanathan Anand. Right? It only shows how great players play, and we thank them. We thank Petrosian also and Anand for their contribution, for their big contribution to our game. Yes. And we can also emulate them, emulate their styles, and try to get inspiration from them. Yeah, one Petrosian, a guy who plays uh, defensive chess, right? His style is different from Anand. Anand is the attacking player, the aggressive one. Petrosian is the solid one. So this contrasting styles from these two tigers of the game is just a beauty to behold. Right? All right, and I hope you guys like our presentation for this new year. Happy New Year! Happy Year of the Tiger, everyone! Let's get roaring this year 2022, and in our next video, we will discuss one of Petrosian's best games. And in further video, again, we will discuss Anand's best game as well. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is Coach Oliver. I'm signing off. See you in our next session. Bye-bye.